Welcome to the Flip Your Script podcast. I'm Christy Peel. A human B12 shot, uplifting, a bright spot, full of energy. That's the reputation today's guest has in the music scene. He's performed at Paisley Park, First Avenue, U.S. Bank Stadium, and toured with Brother Ali and has shared bills with Jaden Smith and Tyler, the Creator. But Nur-D's path took a hard pivot in the days after George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, and it gave him a new way to spread his message. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, if my uplifting, bright introduction was, if anyone is like, really, can he be all those things? Like, look at either his social or my social or the YouTube of this, because like you have every color in the rainbow just on your body right now.
I do. No, we repping some awesome cartoon characters, some black cartoon characters today. Got my Luffy hat on. Shout out to the King of the Pirates, and we making it happen.
I love it. So let's talk music first. How did you get into music? Were you like little guy in the scene or like some choir teacher? Like, how did that start for you?
I have always loved music. I've always been a big like music person, though I will say that I didn't know that I was going to be a musician per se my whole life, but I was always in music. So when I was young, I think the first time music really hit me, we were helping a friend move, family friend move, and I found Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life on like a CD. And I put it into one of the CD boombox things. Like that's how you know
Yes.
how time has
Yes.
passed. And I listened to Sir Duke on repeat, I think, for maybe 2 hours. And it changed something in my head. I was like, I don't know how someone could create something that sounds like this, but I will probably spend the rest of my life figuring that out.
And when people say, "Hey, nice to meet you," what do you do? Do you say, "I'm a musician"? Because
Mm.
people in your line of work you could say you're all sorts of different things. Do you just go with like musician?
I mean, I like to say hip hop person is one of my
Hip hop
favorite things.
person.
Hip hop person. Though, yes, I musician is my job title. Like aspiring famous person is not a job.
But
So
a
I
lot of people have that as their job.
it's
Like
a
how
lot of
many?
it's a lot of work. I'm not saying it's not work. I'm just saying it is not a job.
Because aspiring famous person doesn't pay the bill. Famous
No.
person pays the bills.
Yeah, once you reach it, you're done. And as someone who has garnered a significant amount of fame compared to back when I was working at a call center, I can tell you that it's a lot easier to get more famous the more famous you are. So like once the ball starts rolling, it's kind of just like it's kind of just following the stream half the time.
Which this is a total tangent, but you're totally right. Like when I see NBA players or celebrities like all dripped up in their like Gucci or Prada, it's like they didn't
Yep.
even pay for that. Like
No favor.
they
Yep.
can pay for it and they don't have to because famous begets famous, money begets money,
Yeah,
right?
they get paid for it. Like they will someone will give them $30,000 to wear a $40,000 jacket. Like so that we people who are making $15 an hour or if we're lucky might one day wish to buy that $40,000 jacket for $50,000, which it cost $10 to make. So
Do the math.
famous, do the math, figure it out. All my stuff is either used or from somebody who lives in a town by me. So I'm not
Vintage.
particularly fancy like that though.
And then there's the people who will spend like under 10,000 for the fake of the 50,000, which is even crazier. But anyway,
Just
okay.
like it's a like I'm not a fashion like as you can tell, I just kind of wear what I like. I'm not a fashion dude, but like that seems like an industry that's like wild. You talk about music. Like there's a lot of stuff going on over there.
But if a designer's listening and wants to do a deal with you, you do
Here's
it.
the thing: if the outfit looks cool, I'm gonna wear it. Like here, I've watched these guys on TikTok who make like suits based off of different characters. Like they'll do a color and then like an accent and a bunch of stuff. I've seen those and I love that a lot. But I'm like a big dude. Like they don't really do plus size fashion for men real well. So like I probably would if someone took the time to do it because I'd like to support that industry. But
Ooh,
yeah,
here it is. You
here
heard
it
it here
is.
first. Just
Make
give
it
us
happen, people.
credit when you get your deal.
Yeah, I got
Uh,
you.
okay, so when people think Minneapolis music,
Yes,
they go Prince,
100%.
maybe Dylan, but like Prince is really, I mean, you go
That's our
downtown
QB.
Minneapolis,
That's
he's
our big guy.
yeah, it's
Hmm.
so amazing what's happened in this town and to music. And so many artists give credit to Prince for not just what he did musically, but for staying here and
Yeah.
for investing in musicians here. What what influence has he had and the scene here had because of him on you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I can tell you that Prince is a foundation for our music community. Like, and obviously the people that Prince worked with, the bands, the musicians, like the performance and musicianship that he brought, and along with his team brought, is something that we get to be proud of forever, which is kind of nice. Um, I've been to Paisley Park. I've performed there. I visited there. It is, I don't know. It's fun to have a testament to like greatness somewhere that you can drive to. I think our nation is so big. Like we're real talk, like just geographically speaking, our country is so large. And so sometimes you are really distanced from like a lot of incredible world shaking greatness, a lot just by sheer geographical distance. So the fact that we live in a place where a man lived, worked, and died, and when he died, Paris turned the Eiffel Tower purple. Like that's like you don't like there's very few times that you can say that you're within spitting distance of something that monumental. You know what I mean? And so for me, unfortunately, I never got a Prince interaction, but I know so many people who have at the grocery store, walking around like the lake, just enjoy like going to concerts, being at parties, and then suddenly Prince is there, and it changes the entirety of that night forever for everyone in attendance. It is a goal to aspire to, I think. Whether or not anyone will ever reach those heights again, I mean, just in the industry, it doesn't really, it's not built the same as it was when Prince was rocking. But wow, is that not something to shoot for? And so being able to be so connected with Paisley Park has been like a blessing because it sort of feels like I get to be a part of free continuing that music legacy that we have here in Minnesota.
And without Prince, it would not be what it is, right?
No, no, no. Like I said, Prince was our Kevin Garnett. Like Prince was our guy. Like when we would say like, oh, what's going on Minnesota music wise? People are like, oh, you're not L.A. Oh, you're not New York. We're like, well, we got Prince, and then we're going to have to go. All right, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you do have Prince. Like he was like that was like our thing that we could always say to let sure that so when we would talk about deserving a spot on the world stage, um, it was our proof positive. It was like we actually do have people here that are so good that the world needs to know about it, not just like the region that we're in. Like people in the Congo know who Prince is. You know what I mean? Like we have that ability. And I think that's like super cool.
And he stayed. I mean, he did not need to stay here. And
Mhm.
yes, if you're, I can see downtown Minneapolis from my window and it gets cold here, right?
Yep,
And he
sure
could
does.
have gone somewhere else,
Got a dip.
but he
Mm-hmm.
stayed.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, I feel like that's a really big deal now. I mean, back then, now it's like, you can kind of be everywhere all the time because like we have our phones, we have Zoom, we can be from anywhere. But like back in the day, that was like a conscious commitment to stay in this community because you have the means, you have the money, and like you could just go or anywhere you wanted, really. And so to choose Minnesota is also a really big like honor in and of itself. It's like, no, I could go anywhere in the world. I could live anywhere. And I choose to live here. I think that's cool.
It's really cool. And, you know, May 2020, Minneapolis was put on a map in a different way. And when people think anywhere in the world, if you say, okay, tell me some things about Minnesota or Minneapolis, Prince is on the list, George Floyd. also. It is something that changed everything in Minneapolis and the world, and that changed you and it
Yeah.
changed your message. Talk about how that murder has impacted you and your work.
Yeah, I can tell you as someone who is black in Minnesota, as a great, as wonderful as this place is, there is there was a reckoning that had been due for a minute. And anybody in the movement, anybody in like activism spaces will tell you that this was like Minnesota was always a powder keg. It had always been a powder keg. I mean, since the decimation of the Dakota people, there has been uh a wound that has not fully been healed or cleaned or really attended to in a lot of aspects. And so with the murder of George Floyd and the world being completely shut down to distractions at the same time. Because mind you, had the murder of George Floyd happened in 2017, 2015, 2014, chances are it would have been just like all of the unprovoked and unnecessary murders that happened before George Floyd in Minnesota, most likely not talked about. But the fact that the world was shut down at the same time and no one had anything else to distract them other than to look at this injustice, it lit that match that blew the fuse and ignited the world. I saw George Floyd's rallies in Berlin. It ignited the world because at our core, I think 90% of people know when something is wrong, like something is fundamentally wrong, and they saw it with no other like things in their face to distract them, and they responded accordingly, which was like, that's wrong, that's horrible, that shouldn't have been done. And for me, I was living in St. Paul at the time. But I shopped at that Cup Foods. I went to college around there. I walked those streets. So when I showed up on 38th in Chicago and to protest like everyone else, and we marched to the third precinct, I was there. I was walking. I was a musician because in my head, this goes for a lot of people. I know a lot of people feel the same way. I had marched before. You know what I mean? I've marched for Philando. I've done in my head. What you do is you come in, you march, you do the chants, you say your piece, and you go home, and you hope that like the movement continues forward. This was my ignorance. I didn't know that there was so much more work to do. So I showed up to do what a lot of people do, is just to be at the protest, do the thing, and go home. And when we marched on the third precinct, the violence that we were met with by the police department, the violence that was inflicted on the people just shopping at the Target across the street. Because remember, this was just in the middle of the day. Like there were people doing things like at the same time. The violence inflicted upon those people by the Minneapolis Police Department was so egregious that it is one of those few moments that you kind of have to be stand and be counted. And as a musician, as someone who I have made a very good life for myself, making by receiving money from my community to do what I love. That is a gift. That is a like an honor and a blessing of the highest order. So how much more as a musician do I have a duty to stand up and speak for what's right? So enter in my movement work. I came in not knowing much about anything, but knew when I saw something that was wrong, I moved on it. You know what I mean? And fast forward throughout, and I could talk your ear off about all the stuff that happened in those first 2 years, but I have an organization that's a really amazing organization, Justice Frontline Aid. We provide movement work to people. That started from the burning parking lot of Target. I have been on boots on for quite some time, and it changed my music definitively. Like it changed my music because I say all the time, everybody loves body positivity. Everybody wants to love themselves. Very few people want to dismantle white supremacy. Like it is they're very different grooves to dance to. And when I began to talk about the latter, I really did lose some fans. I did. Like I remember people telling me I'm not listening to your stuff anymore because you used to be about like good stuff, and now you just want to divide people. And it was a loss, but it gained so much more. Not just self-respect, which was a big thing, but I gained other people who want to hear the real stuff. And so yeah, it affected my music in like insurmountable way. Like it is forever changed.
So if you're listening to this from somewhere outside of Minneapolis, you're like, how, like, talk about the powder keg thing. And from a white person born in this state, my perspective, and I'm interested to hear if like you think that this is the like sort of flip side of that, is that people here in general, race or otherwise, just like to not deal with hard things. It's just sort of like in the ingrained how people are, and like, ooh, that whether it's in a family, like, hey, so and so has a drug problem, but we're not going to talk about it. Let's look over here and talk about this other fun, happy thing, and let's put our nice clothes on and go sit in church, and everyone thinks we're good, but we're not good. And that mindset, I think, translated into the largest mass murder that happened in the country was in Mankato and it was Abraham Lincoln signed the Declaration, and all
Yeah.
of the
People
Native
think that
Americans.
Abraham Lincoln's like a cool dude. He was not a cool dude.
He moved like we needed him.
Like
And
the dude was like a monster. Like, granted, it's never like it's hard to be the president of the United States and not do that, but like because it is monstrous position in general when you had the largest colonial force since Great Britain. Like, it's hard to like not be a monster a little bit. But yeah, like Minnesota has blood on its hands. Which is why I know we're not trying to get into all the stuff, but I take umbrage with, especially now during this political, like this, our particular election right now. Like, I take umbrage with this recasting of Minnesota as these plaid wearing yuck. We're just so wholesome here in the Midwest. Like, nah, dude, nah. Like, it is not that. It is not that at all. And it requires, like you said, looking at the hard thing.
and it's really like, for I can only speak for myself and my own experience, but watching, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, but watching the city I love burn
Mm.
hit me as people who destroy things. And yeah, there were bad actors and what, like,
Mm.
forget, just like take the masses of people who just wanted to, like, hey, something is
Mm.
wrong here. Um, those, to me, that's just the work of people who have nothing to lose and are so fed up with the system that,
Mm.
like, what do we have to do to get people to have the conversation and to pay attention? And I just sat on the couch with my kids and my husband weeping,
Mm.
because it was just like, how did we get here? And then you look in the mirror,
Mm.
me as a white woman living here, going, we got here because I was kind of cool looking the other way.
Yeah, and that's it goes for everything, and everyone should really take a look at that. Not to like all trauma matters to everybody, but like the reality is that at some point, the life that you live, especially in America, was founded upon the disenfranchisement of another people group, or the continuation of withholding resources to a people group. Period. Period. End of story. The end. Now, you didn't, like, unless you were our first generation immigrant, you did not choose to be born into this system. You were born here because your parents had you here. But I always say it's not fault, but it's a responsibility. You're not at fault for the systems that were created in this country, but you have a responsibility to either maintain them or dismantle them. And
Amen.
like that's it. That's it. And if we get away from fault and we get to responsibility and duty, we can kind of change our feeling about those things, because you're right. When you look at the city, how did we get here? white complacency. That's how we got here. That's just fact. It's not. I know people hear that and they immediately tighten up. I hear, flinching,
That's the sound of
walnuts
people turning
cracking.
us off. That's just the sound
Yeah,
of
like,
people
oh, I
like,
don't want to hear
I don't
that. I
want
don't
to
want to hear.
hear that.
And that's it's hard to hear. It is hard to hear, but that is a fact. It is a fact that is true. And if you can hear that fact without, I want to say, retreating to the safety of either denial or over self-flagellation. Like, you're going to start with those are both ways to not actually deal with the problem. Being so far in I'm so bad and everything I've done is bad and da 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 da, that you're so busy woe is meing that you're not actually helping is a problem, and pretending that there's not a problem is also a problem. So you just have to understand it, hear that, know that it's true, and then go what can I do now that I know to move forward? And this is just based on any sort of situation, because I'm a man. I was born. I was raised the gender that I also identify as, and as a man, I realize every day how much my privilege comes into play, and how much I'm cool with just turning my head when there are issues that don't involve me, and how I've been conditioned to do that, and I have to make a conscious effort to not do that.
It's such a great point. And I, through the last, 4 or 5 years, I've really thought, okay, what part of the world can I control? Right. Because I am not an elected official, and I never want to be an elected official. But I can control some things, right? I can look at my own part of the world and think about who my friends are and what I'm reading and what
Yeah.
content I'm consuming and how I could educate myself. I just finished reading Fever in the Heartland. Have you read this book?
I have not read Fever in the Heartland, but I can look it up while we're chatting.
It is, again, back to the what was I looking the other way on? I had no idea that the KKK was alive, well, and active in the 1920s, and that it wasn't just people with black or brown skin. It was Catholics and folks who are Jewish. And I mean, it was a whole gamut of things. And the dude who brought the surge back was found in Minneapolis.
Yep.
He was living in Robbinsdale, and he was writing for the newspaper after he got out of jail. So I think it's easy in the North to say, hey, yeah, that's a South problem. We don't have those kinds of problems here. And when you really start doing the research, we talked Native Americans before, but when you start looking at just prejudice and systems, it wasn't just a South problem.
No, and it was designed, it's designed to be that way so that you feel complacent. Remember that slavery was only abolished in the North because there wasn't a need, not because it was morally reprehensible. There were abolitionists in the South and the North the entire time, but wasn't abolished because everybody in the North was like, this is barbaric, let's not do it. They were just the amount of money. Yeah, the amount of money that it costs to maintain slaves is more than it would cost for us to get a machine to do it. So let's just do that. And then so we'll just abolish slavery along the way. It wasn't a grand moral awakening for the North. You got to remember that there was still segregation in Minnesota. It wasn't oh, slaves are free, therefore black people are equal. No, it was, okay, we don't really need this institution. And remember, Abraham Lincoln only had control of the North because the South seceded. So he ain't free nobody. He was just slavery is abolished as a military tactic to disrupt the South and preserve the Union, because now slaves were running to a place where or enslaved people, I'm gonna change my language, enslaved people were running to the North, disrupting the South, and that's why they did it. But you know, like again, we have a lot to reckon for here in the Midwest specifically, but like in the North as well.
And I think, from what can parents do, parents like talk to
Mhm.
your kids about history and the different
Yes.
perspectives and, make sure that they understand the different
Mhm.
perspectives and the different experiences. And yeah, and by the way, there's enslaved people right now, like
Yeah.
millions and millions of
Yep.
enslaved folks. So it isn't like, oh, well, we're good now.
Yeah, it's
No,
not that. It's
no, it's
not that. Like I
not that.
mentioned Congo earlier, because that's what's happening over there. Is the slaves, and like it's just they just stopped bringing them to the shore. They've just outsourced slavery to places where you can't see. And it's easier for you to ignore, because it's not in your face, it's not down the street from you. And and they do that, and I say they, but I mean like corporations, the people in charge. I know, da 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 da. But like they do that because when it is in front of you, this is why I say this, because I people get immediately like, I'm not bad, I'm telling people I kind of figured you're not. I kind of figured you're not. And also, that's what the powers that be figured as well. Because when the world shut down, when you had nothing else to think about, when you had no one, you were getting your needs met, like you were getting checks and stuff, and you didn't have to like kill yourself at a job all day and come home with like 2% battery life left. When you had the time and resource and you saw something bad happen, you acted. You thought that was bad. You immediately knew it was bad. You said something. A lot of people walked in the streets. A lot of people had stuff. They wore pins they bought from black-owned businesses. They did what they could to try and rectify that wrong because it was in front of their face, which is why they move it away from you and keep you busy. So it's like you don't see it because you are probably good. Like you are probably morally more on the right side of things, and you even know it's just it requires a conscious effort to do something about it, and that is difficult sometimes. And that's just a reckoning that you're going to have to deal with, and we all do. Every one of us do.
And yet, when we had nothing else to do and we could have spent our time and energy however we wanted, we still watched The Tiger King. So are we really that awesome? Like, of
Okay, here's the thing about the Tiger King. First of all, because I watched all of the Tiger King, I really
course,
did.
so me too.
And like to say that you are not allowed pleasure is ridiculous. Like to say that you're not allowed pleasure and all you should devote 100% of every waking moment to the betterment of the world around you, and without bettering yourself in any way, shape, or form, it is unrealistic and unsustainable. So having a show that you enjoy, now granted, is that show based off the suffering of like innocent animals and like incredible amounts of drug use? Yeah,
Yes.
yes. Yes, like asterisks. Yes, we should have all probably found a better thing to watch. But because it's a documentary, it had happened. Like it wasn't live. Like we weren't watching this happen live. It was
Well, we
something
would
that
have. We would have.
I don't know. You know what? You're probably right. I don't know. If there was like a live camera feed to what was going on with what Joe Exotic, was that his name? Joe Exotic. If there was a live camera feed. I think I might have tuned in once just to see, and that's not helping the system.
I mean, come on, when that giraffe had a baby, millions of people were watching that live
You never
giraffe
get to see
baby
that.
thing.
Well, the world is so big and beautiful,
There
and
it
it is
is.
held in the hands of like a few people that get to experience the breadth and beauty of this planet because they have the resources to do so. When we get to see something incredible, like as like the common folk, I think it's fair that we stop and take a look at it. I don't know. It's why we watch The Real Housewives of Blank. It's why we watch these shows and do these things. They used to have a show called Cribs, and all it was people watching people's fabulously wealthy homes just because it's like, I'll never see this. Like, and it's kind of interesting to take a look at it just to see. So I don't know. I'm not saying that a giraffe being born is the same as Cribs, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to take a look at, and I feel like you should be cool with watching it.
Okay, I have never had a podcast where we have circled the wagon from giraffes to Tiger King to George Floyd to Minnesota plaid. I mean, we have like Prince, all the things. Some names that should
Yeah.
not be in the same sentence, all just conglomerated.
Joe Exotic and Prince should not be in the same
No,
team.
no. They might have similar style though. I mean, Joe
I
Exotic
mean,
can't pull
I
it
would like to
off.
think Joe Exotic would like to think so.
Yeah, he would for sure he
Yeah,
would.
he would like to think so, but I don't think
But
that's
no,
true.
not even, not even.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about what you're doing now besides
Let's.
watching Real Housewives of Blank.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You never know. I want there's some Real Housewives shows that aren't don't exist that I would really like to watch. I know I
You
can tell
know,
you that right.
if Tim Walz, if this thing keeps going for his political career, Real Housewives of Minnesota is coming. Like you heard it here first, right? It's coming.
I feel like that would be again. We would come to reckon pretty quickly.
If
Like
you
what's
did
going
like
on here?
Real Housewives of Bemidji,
Ah, 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 ah,
right?
ah,
I mean,
ah.
that Real Housewives of Duluth, like if you're from somewhere that you don't know these places, like get out your map, Google them, and the conversation we had about Minneapolis, it a couple hundred miles away, it's a very different
Very
perspective and
different
a
spot. Yeah.
very different,
Yes.
it's just so different. And
Culture.
back to
The
your,
culture shock is wild when you drive 2 hours in any direction.
and they would say the same thing coming
Yeah.
here,
No.
right? Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, what's happening
Yeah.
here? So back to your point about our country is so big,
Mhm.
our state is so big
Yeah.
as well, that it's a really different experience. So Real Housewives of Bemidji,
Uh,
people would watch. People
they
would
would
watch.
watch. They would watch. That's the thing. They would watch. They'd watch heavy.
But we're talking about what you're doing, which is
Yes.
not that.
Not that. Not yet. Anyway, shout out to NBC. Who knows what I'll do? But yeah, no, I've my world is drastically different than when I started doing music, and I having so much fun being able to create and like expand what it is Nur-D is in such a cool way. I'm doing music, I'm doing like big concerts, I'm doing TV, I'm doing cool interviews like this. I have games, I'm flying around the world. It is wild that a kid from Rosemont, Minnesota, talk about the culture shock, from Rosemont, Minnesota, like a minor suburb, is has been able to be put on a plane by Hasbro and flown to the UK to do Dungeons and Dragons. Like because like that's something that I do is kind of insane.
It's awesome. It's
Yeah.
so cool. And you're using your platform to talk about things that matter to you and that you think other people should be looking at, which
Yeah.
is kind of where we started the conversation. And when some people reach levels of fame, they put those things away and start talking about the things that other people prefer that they talk about. Have you made a commitment to continue to talk about and to spotlight and to highlight in your unique way the things that matter to you and matter
Yeah.
to the folks who have supported you?
There is a real pressure when one begins climbing the ladder of this industry. I'm assuming any front facing industry, but I've only really been a musician, so I'll kind of like I'll rock with that.
Until you get to
Um,
fashion, right?
until yeah, maybe I don't know. Yeah, until I get to fashion, so I started making my outfit, my line. But like there is this thing that you always have to ask yourself what's marketable and then what matters to you. And it's not always going to be the same thing. Like I said, loving yourself is marketable. So when I talk about that, when I speak about that, and body positivity is marketable. Why? Because everyone wants to love themselves, whether they no matter how they look. That is a desire innate to people. So it is both marketable and it matters to me. But when I talk about dismantling toxic masculinity or racial reckoning and changes in that regard or political stuff or geopolitics, that matters to me, not marketable like all the time. And so you have to ask yourself, well, when do I do which? And for me, I mean it's just a part of the game. It's a part of the game. And a lot of people who are getting famous now don't know that or haven't really experienced that. But for me, I will always talk about the things that matter to me, um, because that's how I got here. I think the world, as we are seeing it, is growing to be more where authenticity is a gem.
Thank
You
goodness.
know, like is a gem because we have so much mass produced stuff, so much like made for committee, made by committee stuff, for the maximum amount of people to make the most amount of profit. That like I think as people are looking at their entertainment and what they do, they are looking for people who can give them a real, authentic experience. And I would like to think that I'm in that vein. I don't have a I'm not assigned to a label. I don't have a record deal. You know what I mean? I say this is what I like, this is what I don't like, here's my stuff. If you're into it, let's rock. If you're not into it, there are billions of other people to listen to. I don't have to tailor my stuff in order to be successful. There's like a safety aspect. Sometimes I'll be at a show and I'm like, I get booked for a show in the Midwest somewhere. I look around, I see a lot of American flag hats and a few Confederate hats. Maybe I don't do my song about police brutality right then
Wrong
because
audience.
yeah,
Wrong
here
audience.
I am, and I want to get home. So I'm gonna do the love yourself stuff because I believe in that stuff and I can do it fully with my whole heart. Will I go back to that place again? Probably not. But like I'm here, I'm gonna do the thing, and then I'll go back and then do something else. So like you can, there's a little bit of like when do I talk about the things that I care about, but they're never not going to be there.
And it's an interesting I don't know, dichotomy, I guess, that
Mhm.
you have to be so mindful. And I think it's really wise. And at the end of the day, this is your career, this is your business. And to want to keep doing the music means that people need to want to hear the music. So
Yep,
therefore, being wise, it's like any other business, except
yep,
you have the choices, and every business has the decision
yes.
to make about, what I think you described as like the selling out kind of concept.
Yeah, I think there's like it used to be selling out meant that you had all this like you could make the stuff you because there was a time where a seat whether you had one hit song or not, they still had to buy a $15 CD or an LP. So like you could make one song that was a hit and make a ridiculous amount of money, enough money to set you up and your family up for quite some time. Um and so taking more money to not have an artistic vision was like a very big deal to do. Like it was a decision to make because if your song hit, then it would hit. Nowadays, if I have I can make a hit song, put it on my phone, and I don't have to talk to nobody. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to talk to nobody but myself and my bathroom mirror if I really, really wanted to. Like if you were lucky, you got your things met. So I feel like selling out is not as big of a deal now, just because it's not as they don't give you anything. Like, what would I get out of selling out now? I've made all my money. I live in a 3-bedroom house, which is much bigger than anything that I'd ever thought I would have. You know what I mean? I'm used to living in apartments. Like, I had apartments. Like, we had a house with no furniture. I was eating government cheese. Like, I am fine. There is a very little that people could offer me that would make me want to do something else. And that's what gratitude's for. You know what I mean? Like I'm happy, I'm thankful, I'm good. I got a dog and a PS5. You can't really buy me. Like so like I'm gonna keep saying what I want. Hopefully I can do it in a way that doesn't immediately turn people off from me. I take a lot of pride in making sure that what I say is tempered with like understanding and patience and kindness. But like I'm like, yeah, white complacency is the matter of national importance, and if we don't fix it, like more people will die is a fact. I believe that. And sometimes I have that conversation, and sometimes when I'm on the morning news, I talk about omelets because like that's what
Nobody
I'm here
wants
to
to
do.
wake up and like, good morning, let's talk about white
Mhm.
complacency.
Yeah,
Start
I
with an
like
omelet.
it's tough. It's tough. And sometimes people are ready for that, and sometimes they're not. And I have plenty of content out there that will help. We'll talk about that if that's what they want to listen to. But that's why the studio is for me. My music will be whatever I want it to be. And if you have strong opinions about something and you're an artist and you're a musician and it has never made its way to your artwork, you have to ask yourself why that is. When I was out on the street in 2020, when I had gotten shot, I remember I got shot by a less than lethal round in front of the Kmart parking lot while defending injured people and nurses, old nurses. When I say like nurses, like from the hospital, who are just trying to treat injured people with their hands up, getting fired on indiscriminately by the Minneapolis Police Department. When I got hit, and I was told, because that was the rumor going on that night, that they were no longer using non lethals and they were going to be shooting people. When I got hit and I felt that pain, and I thought, oh, I'm dead. Like they shot me. Like I'm going to die, and I'm going to die here in this parking lot. I asked myself, did I say everything that I wanted to say? Like when Nur-D is dead and buried, and they look through my discography, are they going to know that I cared about this? Like, yeah, they'll know that this is where I died, but like, is it? I don't want to get to, for lack of a better term, I don't want to get Martha Luther King Jr. I don't want my legacy to be co-opted by people that don't agree, would have hated me if I was alive. I want to make sure I say all the things out loud so that later on all the platforms I can, so that later on, like when I finally am out of here, you know what I mean? They'll be like, oh no, Nur-D wasn't about that. Just this is what they said, and you can hear it in this song where they say it again. So it's like, yo, I love to make people dance. I love to make people have a good time. And there's very much a version of my show where you will not be challenged to change how you view the world. But there is a version of my show where you will be challenged to think about how you see the world. And I like that. It's a fun way to be an artist.
I think there's a couple of things that are important. I just want to point out as we wrap up. But first of all, the fact that we're having this conversation in a very honest, two people from different backgrounds, we look real different. I think I could rock the hat, but
You could kill this hat. I know you
yeah,
could.
I think I could. The fact that we can have this kind of dialogue, I think that has been one of the gifts of the last 5 years, because of, last 4 years, because these in the hey, let's look and talk about it, that I don't think that was happening quite to the same way 4 years ago, and I think that is one of the ways that we move forward. So I appreciate that you are having the conversation. I think other people can pull from, I hope they pull from this conversation that whatever it is that is on your heart to say, it was probably put on your heart for a reason so that you share it with others. And
Yeah.
it wasn't given to your neighbor because it's not for them to say. They got something else that they're supposed to put out into the world. And if you don't say what's on your heart and what's on your soul to share, whether it's to one person or you have a gift of music or you want to write a book or however you're going to share that, you're actually not living out your purpose. And you're robbing the world of something that was given to you to be shared. So I love that you're unabashedly sharing it, but also in a smart way so that you don't get canceled. And then then you got nothing to say to anyone because no
You
one's
got
listening
nothing to say
anymore.
to anybody. It is a tightrope. It is a skill that I have trained over the course of this time because I always knew I wanted to do this. I wanted to get I remember I was on the streets of downtown Minneapolis and I said to myself, if Beyonce was here standing next to me, they wouldn't be gassing us. Not because she has such a power and these super mega celebrities have such global importance that they would stop, they would think, they would call the mayor, should we do this, like should look, because this is going to get everywhere if we hit, if we pelt Taylor Swift with non-lethal rounds while she's standing in front of a Free Palestine rally, will we get in trouble as a community? They would have to think about that. And that's why I want to be famous. I'm chasing fame not just because I think it'd be cool to be famous, because I do. It seems like it's fun. I like making new friends, and the world is so big. The famous you are, the more friends you can make. But also, like, I just, I, I want to use it for good. I feel like it's important, and it requires tact It requires like just a little bit of knowing the game and understanding. I have just enough rage at the injustices that'll keep me pushing, but just enough compassion that helps me steer so I don't hurt anybody. I don't run over anybody just cuz. You know what I mean? And that's the sweet spot that I hope to maintain for the rest of my career.
I hope you do as well, because in the current realm of Diddy and some
Ah,
of the other things, right, going on in the music world, like hopefully the whole genre doesn't get like put into this Diddy party sort of everybody, therefore everyone is living like this and
oh,
wants to be famous for that. So
yeah.
it would be wonderful to have some folks kind of rise up and say, oh no, we can be for these things. And
Yes.
like every good human being on the planet, we're against that.
100%. If you're an up and coming artist, this is something real, real. If you're an up and coming artist, regardless of where you're at, where you're listening to this, no matter around the world, now is the time. Like now is the time because there's going to be a monumental shift in the industry. A lot of people, both who are charting, like on the charts, and the people who control those charts, are going to be going away. Whether they are going to jail or whether they are going to retreat from the public eye indefinitely to save themselves from what would send them to jail. Like there is going to be a vacuum of like this. And I said this is going to be a weird sentence to all my revolutionary friends, but one of the good things about capitalism is that as long as are making the money, the people that are in charge will allow you to say what you want to say. And now that we are moving into a world where authenticity, genuineness, kindness, realness is valued by a dollar amount, like people would rather pay you because they know who you are, companies will get behind you because of that. And so we're about to move into a world where there's a big empty space and you can now fill it. There are going to be a lot of less people in your way. So stay the course, be yourself, talk about what you believe in, like actually believe in, stand on business, and keep making great music or art or whatever it is you do, because there's going to be a space for you that hasn't existed in like 50 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's CEOs from music groups stepping down. Like there is a shift coming. You're going to feel it in the next 2 years. And so it's like now's the time. Tell everybody who you are and what you're about. Don't stop. Don't think because I'm not famous now. It's because a lot of it is they don't want you to be famous. Like it's a plan. They have people. They've paid for those people. So it's like those people are going away. Maybe now is your turn.
And let's move from being against stuff to being for stuff.
Yeah. Heck
Wouldn't that
yeah.
be great? Like
I
whatever it
love
is,
being
you're
for
be
stuff.
for stuff, right?
I
We can
love being
all,
for
yeah,
stuff. It's
that,
beautiful.
oh, it's wonderful. But I am against the Diddy party.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
And everyone should be.
oh,
Everyone should be. But what you can be for is for treating everybody with respect and
yes.
dignity. You can have a party. I've thrown many a party that is fun and crazy, and we get all up into shenanigans, and never once does anybody have to be like degraded for it. Like, you know
And
what I
you're
mean?
not in jail.
And
You're
I'm
not
not
in
in
jail.
jail. I'm not in jail. And also, I'm not trying to take away anybody's autonomy or agency in order for me to have a good time. You know what I
And you,
mean? Like, just being a wild, crazy, kinky party is not in it of itself is a negative. But when you start taking away people's agency to do that, it is a very big problem. So like I'm like absolutely not 100%. If even one of these things is true, I don't care how one is too many. One is too many, and you need to be pulled to task for that. Period. End of story. End of conversation. Anybody says anything different, check their servers. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's it's a very easy thing to be pro. Should everybody be consenting adults? Consenting adults?
yes.
That's a yes, the end. If anybody says anything else, check their servers. That's
You need new
weird.
friends. Like you
You
need
need
new
new
friends.
friends, and I'm for consenting adults doing things that make them happy, as long as the thing that makes them happy doesn't infringe on anybody else's autonomy.
And they have the agency to say, I'm into this.
I'm into this, or I no longer like this. Can I please go home?
Yes. Yes. Let me call an Uber for you. Thank you.
Exactly.
And I think it's such a good point that, I mean, there is no Diddy party without all the guests, right? So it wasn't like, to your point about the vacuum, I think that's the conversation that sort of mainstream isn't having yet is, okay, there's, maybe it's LeBron because he said there ain't no party like a Diddy party. Like hey, there's dozens of people because the
It's gonna be a
parties
lot.
took dozens of people and
You were a guest list. It was a mile long guest list. People wait outside. Like there is a vacuum coming. There's a reckoning coming. It's gonna happen. And again, we talk about bringing it full circle. We talk about turning your head. Like a lot of these people, I'm not going to go in to say what these people did or didn't do, but one of the things that I can tell that they did was turn their head. I've walked into parties or places and just been like, who is running this? What is going on here? And I saw this. I'm going to go talk to the person in charge. And if I don't like the way that they answer, I am going to leave and tell everybody. I've walked out of shows for less. And that's the things that are paying me to be there. You know what I mean? So it's just like, there's a level of complacency. There's a level of like, well, it's not my problem, or I didn't see anything, or we're supposed to I'm not going to say anything. And you think that you're doing good by just not talking about it. But like, no. Like, if you even have a rumor that like there is someone who doesn't want to be there, they're there against their will. And again, this is just me being wild, and maybe this is a little hot take for some people, and I'll give it to you. This is just a feeling that I've had recently. But I'm just like, as a Black person, I cannot abide with someone being forced to be in a place where they don't want to be and forced to perform or serve anyone. I don't care what that race of person is, because I know the pain that is etched onto an entire people group because of that. I'm not saying that Diddy was doing chattel slavery, but in my head, I'm like, if someone doesn't want to be there and like they want to leave and you're forcing them to do something that they don't want to do, like against that across the board, just like, you know what I mean? Like, bleh, it's gross. So like, there's a lot of Black people on this list, and I'd be like, I would ask them like, how did you square that with yourself?
Yeah,
That's
I think
me.
they'll be sitting in jail for probably some time so they can ask
You can
themselves
think
those
about it.
hard questions.
Yeah, they can. Hopefully they do. Hopefully the people that are supposed to be in jail go to jail. I know right now the industry is trying to figure out who they can save. That's just real. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's true. I feel like now, because you have a lot of big names with a lot of money invested in this. If someone did a Sprite commercial and they spent $6 million on a Sprite commercial, and like this commercial is about to launch, they have to ask themselves, is it worth it? So they're scrambling. People are scrambling. They're having conversations. They're going to pick out their 10 or 15 people that they're going to save from this. And the rest of them are going to go to jail probably, and should. And so
Yeah.
like, we'll see. We'll see where that all comes down. I am just going to keep making my music, perform, say on the stuff that I want to do. And if anybody tells me if I want to go to a crazy party, in with the famous people, with the cool kids, because I ain't never been one of the cool kids. I can tell you that right now.
I
Like,
think you're a cool kid now. Come on.
well, okay, maybe I am a cool kid now, but like, I was not raised cool kid. All
That's
right,
because you're from Rosemont. I'm from Hutchinson, so like I got nothing. Okay, we could just like keep talking, but I want to allow the amazing quote that you have pulled up to
yes,
share with us as we close out our episode.
of course. So I found a quote from a famous illegal alien to the Midwest. Specifically came to this country illegally, was hidden, never got green card, never got papers. And the quote goes as such: "And there will be peace. There will be peace when the people of the world want it so badly that their governments will have no choice but to give it to them. I just wish you all could see the earth the way that I see it. Because when you really look at it, it is just one world. That quote
Beautiful.
is by, like I said, famous illegal alien Clark Kent, aka Superman, uh, from one of my favorite Superman issues. So
That's awesome.
it's super dope. I love it, and it's real. You know what I mean? We can have peace in our lifetime. We just have to demand it.
Yeah. Well, I so loved talking with you, and I'm a new fan. So thank
Oh, thank
you.
you.
It was like I will be watching your career, and I hope that vacuum opens up in the music world and you just step right in and you take your awesomeness in there and you keep Minnesota on the music map. Okay.
Hey, that's the plan. That's the plan from morning to night. We're gonna show them.
I love it. I love it. Well, it has been quite a conversation. I learned some things. I was challenged. I have some new insights, and I hope you do as well. Boy, and two things to end in the Flip Your Script Challenge of the week. One, pray for peace. Man, in the world we live in right now, pray for peace. And number two, figure out what you're for and tell people about it. My hope is Nur-D's story empowers you to believe you're capable of more than you think, to discover motivation, to uncover inspiration, and to find the strength to turn the page.